Welcome back to my fourth video. We are going to be unedited as usual, but coming at you today in HD with my new camera. Today I got another little guitar trick tip for you. Today's is about Les Pauls. Keeping your Les Paul in tune. Les Paul guitars are notorious for not wanting to stay in tune, and I was just recently recording a song with my Les Paul studio here. I usually play Strats. I only own one Les Paul. I'm more of a Strat guy, but I needed a Les Paul for this song, for the sound, so I used my, it's a 08, yeah, 08 Les Paul Studio for it. This guitar has been, it sounds great, but it's been nothing but problems since the day I got it. So yeah, the only reason I held on to it was because it does sound nice. But over the process of recording this song, I had to learn all kind of little tricks to help keep this in tune, to keep the neck. The neck wanted to move around on me all the time, so I had to basically learn how to become my own guitar tech to be able to make adjustments on the spot, because this thing just does not like to stay in tune, doesn't like to stay anywhere you put it. So I got 7 little trick tips for you today on how to keep your Les Paul in tune. And some of these I've heard from other people, some I figured out on my own along the way, but these are 7 tips that help me the most to keep my Les Paul in tune, and this is your typical example of a really fussy one, so they worked for me, so they'll probably work for you too. Anyway, Les Pauls, they're one of the main reasons they're notorious for not staying in tune is they are smaller guitars. What I mean by that is the distance from the nut to the bridge here is shorter than other guitars, like let's say a Stratocaster, for example. This distance here from end to end is shorter, makes it a shorter guitar. So what that does is that's nice for playability. It makes the strings feel nice and loose so you can bend them nicely. But the problem with that is that since they are looser and they don't have to be as tight to reach the same note, less tension has to be applied to the strings, which makes them kind of want to move around a little more and not stay in tune so much. So think about, so for example, think about a tightrope, right? If you had a rope, what would be easier, to pull it tight with your hands this far away, or to pull it tight with your hands this far away? Obviously, it's going to be easier to pull it tight from this, with your hands this far away, because you're going to have more leverage and torque, and you're not going to have to apply as many pounds of pressure to get the same tension as you would if your hands were this far away. Make sense? So same concept here. The guitar doesn't have to be under as many pounds of pressure to be in tune. Ultimately, what that does is it makes the tuning of the strings look less fixed. The fact that they have less tension on them makes it so they want to move around more and not stay in tune. Now, how does that relate to keeping it in tune? And there's other, I guess you could call them design flaws with a Les Paul that kind of knock it out of tune as well. One of them being the angle of the headstock here is a really sharp angle, which has to do with the string alignment. So that brings us to our first and probably most important trick tip for keeping your Les Paul in tune, is to keep the nut and the bridge lubricated. Anywhere where the string makes contact with the guitar, you want lubrication in there so the strings don't pinch on these spots and they just slip and slide nicely. When they pinch is when when you get out of tune. So you can buy lubricant for this at like most of your typical music stores or guitar stores have some type of lubricant. Usually comes in a syringe that you can put in each groove before you change, after you change your strings, or not after, when you take your strings off, you lubricate each groove and then you put the new string on. And that keeps everything, like I said, slipping and sliding and nothing pinches. Now another thing, if you can't buy lubricant, another good thing you can use is graphite from a pencil tip. You can get a little bit of a pencil tip and just color in each groove, and that graphite has kind of a slippery surface to it, and that'll help keep the strings from binding up. So that's probably one of the most important ones, which brings me to the next tip, which is to make sure that the grooves in your nut here are cut properly and that you're keeping up with them. You want to keep them a nice U shape to the grooves. All right, you don't want them to have like harsh angles, and this can all be done by just keeping up with your guitar setups. If you don't know how to do this yourself, then take it to a guitar tech to get set up, and they'll make sure that each groove has a nice contour to it and has a nice polished surface. Because what happens is if you don't take care of your guitar, the strings will kind of wear their own groove within the groove, and then they get settled in there and they pinch and they don't like to move out of that. So you want to make sure you're keeping up with your nut here and that each one has a nice contour, so the strings aren't binding and setting up into a groove from you not keeping up with your guitar. So those are probably the two most important to keep string pinching from happening. And string pinching also happens from another, I guess you could call it a design flaw with a Les Paul, is there's no straight string alignment here. As you can see, since the tuning pegs are on each side, each string has to bend that way or that way to get to each tuning peg. The string alignment is not perfectly straight, so that angle is going to cause pinching as well, which is another reason why it's important to make sure that your nut is nice and the contours inside each one are nice and they're polished. All right, so that brings us on to tuning. Another two tips with tuning. Now this tip I kind of discovered. I think I discovered it on my own. I've heard someone else talk about it. I've only heard one other person talk about it. After I kind of figure it out, and this really helped for me. I don't even know if there's any science behind it, but I just my feeling, and I've noticed a big improvement is to tune your strings either inside out or outside in. Now, what do I mean by that? Don't start at the top and work your way down, or start at the bottom and work your way up. You want to start in the middle, two strings, tune those, and then work your way out for tuning, or start on the outside strings and work your way in for tuning. Make sense? So, and the idea behind this is that you want to keep an even amount of tension on each location in the neck. You want each string to be carrying, you want each string to be contributing to the workload of tension of the guitar. In other words, if you start at the top and work your way down, especially with, like, if you have a guitar with a Floyd Rose, you'll really notice this, that you tune the top, you get to the bottom, and then when you're done, all of a sudden your top strings are out of tune again. And then you tune those two, and the next two are out of tune. And you tune those two, and the next two are out of tune. What's happening is that you're never actually tuning the guitar. You're just transferring the amount of tension to a different place on the guitar. Too much tension's on these wound strings, then you retune those, and then the other strings next to it will tighten up to compensate. And you can avoid this by, you know, going E, E, A, B, you know, G, D, right? So then you're balancing the tension, and not only will this help keep your Les Paul in tune, but it'll help you tune your guitar quicker. So it's good for, you know, obviously if you're in a live scenario. You want, you know, to keep the guitar in tune, it has to be under a certain amount of pounds of pressure. You want each string to be contributing equally to that. And I've heard some people say that the proper way is to tune them inside out, not outside in. I've found that that doesn't matter so much. It's just as long as you don't start at the top and work your way to the bottom, or start at the bottom, work your way to the top. Just try to stick to either inside out or outside in, and that seems to work better. Which leads to our next part of tuning: tune up to the note, not down to. So what do I mean by that? If you're at E and you're a little bit sharp, don't tune down to E. Tune below, go flat of E, and then twist up to it. So actually go counterclockwise past the note you're trying to get to, and then go clockwise back up to it. This will, you know, both, obviously if you tune down to it, it'll get your guitar in tune, but it won't, if you tune up to it, it'll keep it in tune for longer. So yeah, always tune up to the note, not down to it. And then, this is probably dumb, but obviously stretch out your strings if you have new strings. Anytime you put new strings on, guitar strings are metal, they have elasticity, they need to be stretched out, or that elasticity is going to keep stretching and stretching, and you're going to constantly be tuning up until they're done being stretched out. And then the last that I found was really, really helpful too is wherever if you got a gig or you have recording, like studio time booked, wherever you're going and you got to pack your guitar up and put it in the case, when you get to your destination where you're going to be playing, as soon as possible, take your guitar out of the case and put it on a stand. Les Pauls, since they are shorter, they play nicely when the neck has a nice curve to it. Now if you put it in a case and close the case, it's going to put pressure in the opposite direction. It's going to want to flatten the neck out. So you want to take, wherever you're going, you want to take it out of the case, put it in a stand, and let it sit there and acclimate to its new environment. Let the curvature of the neck get restored before you tune it. Don't take it out of the case and tune it, because then the neck's gonna adjust and then it's gonna be out of tune. You wanna take it out of the case as soon as possible, let it sit, let it acclimate, and then after that, then tune it, and it will stay in tune for much longer, and you'll probably have to make way less adjustments down the line. So anyway, those were my 7 tips that I have for help keeping your Les Paul in tune if you have a fussy Les Paul. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on, you know, guitar trick tips, anything from like, you know, setup kind of guitar tech stuff like that to just playing trick tips. I'll be doing some gear reviews, uploading music, so stay tuned and hit subscribe if you haven't. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you.